Looking out for Georgia's youth, education can make a difference. Mandated reporters, categories of abuse, indicators of abuse, disclosures, reporting, prevention. This portion of the Georgia Code, the laws around child abuse and neglect, that defines a mandated reporter and your obligations in that role. Some changes became official as of July 1st, 2012. The law already designated Child Service Organization personnel as mandated reporters, but new language spells out the definition of Child Service Organization personnel as an employee or volunteer at an organization that pretty much does anything with children. Some roles at schools were already specified in the law, but these changes make it clear that everyone at this school is a mandated reporter. Even the volunteer who comes in on the weekend to help with landscaping school grounds is mandated to report suspected child abuse and neglect. The four categories of abuse are physical abuse, sexual abuse, emotional abuse, neglect. Neglect is overwhelmingly the most common of all. 80% of children with substantiated allegations in the U.S. were neglected. Neglect is the failure of a parent, guardian, or other caregiver to provide for a child's basic needs. This can also include failure to protect them from a known risk of harm or danger. Physical neglect means not providing food, shelter, or adequate supervision. It is also the failure to protect a child from a known risk of harm or danger. It could also mean exposing the child to environmental hazards, abandoning a child, or even exposing a child prenatally to drugs and alcohol. One basic need that children have is safety from harm and lack of supervision. This is a common allegation associated with neglect in Georgia. The Division of Family and Children Services provide a guide about whether neglect is substantiated during inadequate supervision. Children 8 and under are never to be left home alone. Children between 9 and 12 may be left home alone for short periods of time, less than 2 hours. 13 and older may be left home alone longer and may babysit younger children, but not more than 12 hours. There is still a consideration of the maturity of the child. A child who is chronologically 10 but developmentally much younger might still not be adequately supervised if he or she is left home alone at all. Physical indicators of neglect is frequently absent from school, begs or steals food or money, lacks needed medical or dental care, immunizations, glasses, etc. Is consistently dirty and has severe body odor, lacks sufficient clothing for the weather, abuses alcohol or drugs, states that there is no one at home to provide care. Physical abuse. Physical abuse is the non accidental physical injury of a child. The indicators are has unexplained burns, bites, bruises, broken bones, or black eyes, has fading bruises or other marks noticeable after an absence from school, seems frightened of the parents and protests or cries when it is time to go home, shrinks at the approach of adults, reports injury by a parent or another adult caregiver. Sexual abuse. Sexual abuse can be a difficult topic to discuss. Sexual abuse is anything done with a child for the sexual gratification of an adult or older child. It is also important to remember that physical contact with a child is not required to sexually abuse a child. Direct sexual contact with a child is abuse, but it is also sexual abuse to expose a child, for a person to expose him or herself to a child, to show pornography to a child, and so on. In cases of child sexual abuse, you are much more likely to see behavior indicators. Some of those indicators are: the child suddenly refuses to change for gym or physical activities, has trouble sleeping or wets the bed, has a history of running away, is unduly protective of other siblings, demonstrates bizarre, sophisticated, or unusual sexual knowledge or behavior. Other indicators are: has difficulty walking or sitting, reports nightmares, becomes pregnant or contracts a sexual transmitted disease. Commercial sexual exploitation of children. This is when someone gets sexual gratification, but often someone is getting other kinds of compensation by facilitating the abuse. When individuals buy, trade, or sell sexual acts with a child, some of the indicators are: branding or tattooing, an older boyfriend or male friend or female friend, withdrawn and uncommunicative, large amounts of money, inappropriate dress or poor hygiene, runaway or lack of adult supervision support. Emotional abuse. Emotional abuse is sometimes called psychological abuse. It is a pattern of behavior that impairs a child's emotional development or sense of self worth. They include constant criticism, threats, rejection, even withholding love, support, or guidance. Emotional abuse is almost always a part of these other types of abuse. Some of the indicators are: shows extremes in behavior, inappropriately adult or infantile, is delayed in physical or emotional development, has attempted suicide, reports a lack of attachment to the parent. Now we will discuss disclosure, reporting, rights as a mandated reporter. Disclosures. When a child tells you that he or she has been abused, you should always take that statement seriously, regardless of how credible the child's statement seems. Children may sometimes disclose indirectly with hints such as, "My brother wouldn't let me sleep last night." "There was no one home to help me with my homework." "I don't like it when my mother leaves me alone with my uncle." Children may disguise their disclosure. "I know someone who is being touched in a bad way. What would happen if someone told you that he was getting hit and wanted it to stop?" Children may want to disclose with strings attached, such as, "I have a problem, but if I tell you about it, you have to promise not to tell." "Can you keep it a secret?" "No." "What can you do?" You can make sure that no one who does not have a need to know is told anything. Emphasize that you're concerned about their safety. When a child discloses to you, find a private place to talk with the child and stay calm. Reassure the child, "I believe in you. I am glad you told me. It is not your fault that this happened." Listen openly and calmly. Try to keep your own emotions and nonverbal cues neutral. Don't comment on the child's situation as being good or bad. Let the child tell his story in his or her own words. Write down the facts and words as the child has stated them. Leave out your own assumptions and value judgment. Do not ask leading questions. Praise the child for his courage. Report the disclosure to the designated reporter in your school. Respect the child's need for confidentiality by not discussing the abuse with anyone who does not have a need to know. Worth County Schools Child Abuse Neglect Reporting Protocol. Employees of the school staff and volunteers who suspect child abuse or neglect will immediately, the day of your suspicion, Notify the school counselor, school administrator, or the appointed designee. The school counselor is the first point of contact. If the counselor is absent or unavailable, please notify a school administrator. Employees, other school staff, and volunteers will document their suspicion of abuse or neglect in writing on the Georgia Child Protective Services mandated reporter form. In completing the Georgia Child Protective Services mandated reporter form, please complete with as much detailed information as possible. If there are any questions about the child's complete name or address, please seek guidance from the school counselor. Please provide the name of the student's mother and father if it is known to you. If not, please consult with the school counselor. Please list the child's name and date of birth. If you do not have this information, please seek guidance from the school counselor. When documenting specific concerns regarding the suspicion of child abuse or neglect, please refer to these areas and answer accordingly. Specific concerns. What are your specific concerns about the children? Has something happened to the child? If so, what happened? When and where did it occur? And who was involved? Was an object used, and if so, what type of object? Circumstances surrounding your concerns. Please review these questions and provide relevant information. Child functioning. Describe each child's day-to-day functioning in relation to other children their age. If you have this information, please document it. Parenting discipline, general parenting, adult functioning, additional comment section. Please complete this form according to the information that you have regarding any information that you have collected on the suspicion of child abuse and neglect against the child. After you have completed the mandated reporter form, submit the form to the school counselor or appointed designee. The school counselor or appointed designee is to inform the school administrator that a report has been made. The school counselor, school administrator, or appointed designee will immediately, the day the reporting form is received, make a report to the Department of Family and Children Services. After the report has been made, the school counselor or designee will also complete a mandated reporter contact to DFACS form and submit all copies of forms to the school social worker. All information pertaining to any incident of suspected child abuse and neglect is confidential information. The information should not be discussed with anyone who does not have a need to know. Rights as a mandated reporter. Anonymity. You have the right to report anonymously, but if you are a mandated reporter and the worst case scenario happens, will you be able to prove that you fulfilled your mandate? Confidentiality. You have the right to confidentiality. This means that the Division of Family and Children Services cannot reveal that you made the report. Penalties. What are the penalties for not reporting? Any person or official required by Georgia law to report suspected cases of child maltreatment and who knowingly and willfully fails to do so shall be guilty of a misdemeanor. Remember, you do not have to know for sure that abuse or neglect has happened. You just have to suspect that a child is in harm's way and share everything you know as accurately as possible.